Welcome to Wigan Fan TV. Castleford versus Wigan preview, the third one that we've done this year for only the second game. Joining me is Mark from Super League Pod. Hi, Mark.
Hi, Sean. How you doing?
Very good. I've got a massive background behind me as we've
It's
just been talking
amazing.
about. Yeah, it is, and unfortunately, we're not getting the full benefit of it because just haven't found a suitable place for it to be yet. It's ridiculous. Like it's massive. My wife practically threatened to divorce me. Um, lots of lots of
You
things
didn't
to
need
talk
that
about
shot
tonight.
this week, did you? Really?
No, not really. So we've got a week to go until the baby's due. So this may or may not be the last show that I'm on for a little while. But yeah, it's of all the times to sort of bring home an 8 foot 2 meter Wigan background and try and sneak it into your study is probably not the week before your wife's about
Did
to give birth. So yeah.
Did you order it that size, or did you put in the wrong number, like some kind of apprentice gap type
Yeah,
thing?
the metric system confuses me. I'm not going to lie. But anyway, there's lots of things that I've sort of put on today. So we've got in the comments section, if anybody does want to join Mark and myself on screen, whether you've been on with us before or you want to come on, I can't imagine that many people would want to join us. But if you do, there's a link there. Just click on it. You can use it on your phone, use it on your tablet. If you've got something to say about the game on Friday or anything in particular, just let us know. Experiment, see if anybody wants to join us on screen. It's a bit like a phone in, but you're sort of FaceTiming in. It's like a
Facing
face
there,
in.
a facing.
Facing, yeah, let's call it a facing. There's another thing as well. Andy's already done it, but I've just got some of these little stubby holder things. I've got one to give away, so you can, basically tag a friend, and we'll pick somebody at the end of the show, and I'll post it down to you because it's sat in my drawer doing nothing at this moment in time. But let's talk about rugby, Mark. We
Yes,
were
excellent.
at we were sat next to each other at Hull.
Yeah,
Throughout the monsoon that arrived and disappeared. What were your thoughts on the whole game? Sort of had a few days to settle in. It was an important win, obviously.
huge win, huge win. Dead excited, weren't it? That finish. I
Yeah,
mean, I don't. I'm glad that we won by a try rather than a lucky try rather than a ropey drop goal. I would have.
yeah,
I'm glad that we won that way. I think from our own try line up to their 20 meters line, we were fantastic. I think they looked more threatening when they got near our line than we did. It's still a worry that we didn't quite execute well enough. We did have a few tries chalked off as well, didn't we? For there was a
yeah.
knock on a forward pass, and I think I can't remember the third one
We
now.
had the
I think it
Davis
was
try, what was perfect and disallowed, wasn't it? They've shown
well, it looked.
they've shown the photographs, and it looks like he grounded it.
Yeah, it looked live though, didn't it? Like it slipped out of his hand. So I can understand why the match officials live with no replays or anything made that call. And at least they made the right call on the Sarge one, which a lot of Hull
Yeah,
fans were disputing. So yeah, I think we made a few chances, but we still looked a little bit like people weren't quite playing as joined up together. Williams was really impressive in the game,
yeah,
apart from the same problems that we've been seeing. No one is really going with him, reading what is kind of trying to do and those sorts of things. Williams' stats were out of this world. I can't believe he's injured and now out for about 4 weeks after
yeah.
putting
It
up
was at
six
six,
breaks,
six clean breaks. Yeah,
196 meters, but only one try assist from the kick for Sarge. And yeah, I just think this is what we've been seeing. You talked about that. George Williams is so talented, about as talented a player as I've seen come through as I've
yeah,
been a Wigan season ticket holder the last 20 years or so. But he's got flaws in his game, and the problem with George is he hasn't really addressed those flaws yet. His game management is talking to other players, and one of the big things I think we've seen when his confidence has been down, he's been trying to do the same stuff that he's done before, but people aren't going with him,
yeah,
and so he's looking rubbisher because he's doing things and no one's expecting them to happen. No one's going with him. He's not talking to players saying, I think on the next play, if I see this, I'm going to shift. And he doesn't tell other people what he sees. He doesn't seem to read the game, count the numbers right. And they're the things he needs to work on. But this game
yeah,
he was starting to be more confident and at least trying everything still. And luckily, one of the times the guys went with him, and that was a big boost for me. But I don't get this talk about Williams like, oh, he's not a marquee player. And I know you're probably going to get tons of comments saying he's not a marquee player. He's gone downhill since he signed that contract. He's still our top assist maker, one of the top assist maker that we've had
Well,
in the whole
the
league.
question that I put there last week, which is what you answered to me on Twitter, was I was surprised by his statistics. So I think up until last week, it was 16 games played, 16 assists, and 5 tries, something along those lines. And I was quite
Yeah.
surprised by that. And I think the conversation that we were having was who is best suited, what is the ideal seven to contribute to Williams' game? Now, a lot of people from the discussions that we had on here and the comments were suggesting Escaré, but you've got a strong opinion about Escaré, I think, in terms of that halfback combination.
Well, I enjoy Escaré. I think he's exciting, he's vibrant, is fantastic, and all those things. I've just not seen him put together a full performance.
Has he had the opportunity though?
He's done really well when he's come off the bench and against a team when the Pack's already won the physical battle in the first half an hour, like happened most of the first say 10 games of the season, let's say.
Yeah.
But he's looked absolutely lost when he's come on in lost performances, where the Pack hasn't been winning. He's been moved more back to fullback, hasn't he, in the last couple of games when he's come on, which maybe is helping his confidence build again. And he does look exciting and stuff when he comes on, but I just don't think Tompkins is clearly the better fullback for me. Yeah. So I know everyone wants Escaré playing and they're mad at Tompkins for off the field stuff as well as the fact that he's leaving and those things. But Tompkins has been our best player this year and his best position is fullback. And I don't really understand the desire to get Escaré in over Tompkins. That's my sort of situation there. Escaré has done some nice stuff, but I don't feel he's really turned the game around. The only game he's played a full 80 to my mind was away at Widnes, and he scored a absolutely cracking try. But 5 minutes before that, he bombed a set up a perfect opportunity to score. So you get a bit of both with Morgan, and he's not entirely consistent. And I just think I don't understand why everyone wants him playing all the time. I get he's exciting to watch though.
Yeah, absolutely. Good afternoon, I guess, rather than good evening to Nate over in DC. He's watching us, and he says that he loves the new backdrop. Yeah, don't ask for one, Nate, because trying to get it in the post to me was difficult. I can't send you one of these to DC, I'm afraid. Yeah, so one of I've got to say this. I haven't spoken to you about this, Mark, but I just remembered it in the car when I was driving back from Hull. One of the funniest things I've seen at a rugby game was you on Saturday, where it was getting really exciting. I think the weather was coming down, it was like a monsoon. Wigan were hammering at the whole try line, and a decision came against us, and you just basically shouted bullshit at the top of your voice. And there's a little 4-year-old lad just stood there looking at you, and you just went, "Oh, I'm sorry." And this little guy was just sort of staring up at you, and I just remembered that in the car on the way home. And just thought, "Oh goodness."
I've got what I call I've got terrace Tourette's is what I call it. I just can't hold the swear words in when I'm watching games. I'm quite balanced after the game, but during the game I'm just too passionate to find balance. But I managed to just about pull it in. I could have, I've been worse before and not realised.
It was just the horror on the little boy's face of all the times that he was actually facing you and not watching the game. Was that moment? It came back to me in the car. I feeling myself laughing at it.
Well, I apologise to that young fella and his dad for any offence.
You apologise straight away. I mean, I'm sure no offence was caused. Before we move on to previewing the Castleford game, you've got the Super League Pod T-shirt on. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what people can expect to hear on this week's 3 hours? It's 3 hours again. I checked. It's a 3-hour spectacular.
I don't know how it got to 3 hours this week. It was Tim G Radio, who's is his Twitter handle, who's a Hull KR fan, but he's also the ground announcer at the Coventry Bears. Yep. So he's been involved at various different levels across rugby league. So he's always got a good anecdote or two. So there's a couple of anecdotes in there about when he was St John's ambulance lad at Hull FC when he was at uni in Hull. We talked a bit about Hull actually because it's the first time I've ever had any sort of time in the Hull city centre, and the city centre is nice. As soon as you get one street out either direction, it's not quite the same. But the city centre, I can't recommend it enough. It was a really nice stay that me and my wife had. But yeah, so we talk a bit about those sorts of things. We had a lot of people get in touch about their views of the games last weekend, particularly the Super League games, because there's quite a few exciting games.
Yeah, I listened to the Hull and Wigan reviews. I did fast forward to try and find those. There's a couple of brilliant ones in there from Hull fans. I must say it's well worth a listen just for those.
Yeah, and on next week's show, after the international game and State of Origin, hopefully we're going to be joined by, well, we should be joined by Brian, who, if you follow him on Twitter, Brian Davies, he's one of the few England fans who've made the trip over. He doesn't miss a
Yeah,
game for
yeah, he
England,
loves
and
England, doesn't he? He's a
exactly, yeah. So we're going to be joined by him on the show, and he's going to have been in Denver and experienced it and seen what it
fantastic.
was like and that sort of stuff. So next week's show, I'm really excited for that, and hopefully we might get New South Wales fan on if they win the Origin series, and get a boost up New South Wales fan as well that we might record straight after the game on Sunday and see if we can fit that in as a bit of fun as well. So there's plenty to look forward to next week, certainly. If people who are going to the game as well, because it's not our game's not on television. It's always great if people send in their match reviews. If you look out on our Twitter feed at Super League Pod for the posts that come up for that, we really like the match reviews from the listeners. It's what makes our show different to the other shows, really.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
thanks for allowing me to plug.
No, not a problem. I enjoyed listening to it on the way to on the way to Hull FC last week. It was quite an enjoyable listen, a very funny listen to that. The Castleford game is why we're here. We're going to preview it. Just a little bit from So Martin's just asking, can we comment about Winder being coached 12 months? We'll come on to that, Martin. That is something that we spoke about last week and I spoke to Phil Wilkinson about. So if I don't get to it, remind me later on. But let's talk about Castleford. We invited Rob on, but he's busy tonight. So our resident, he's there. What perfect timing, Rob. Just commented on. So Rob's our resident Castleford fan, the only one.
I can tell you what he would have said.
Well, he says that Cast by 40 on Friday.
Yeah, he would say, Cast of the Champions, they're going to walk it, Daryl Powell's God. That's what he would have said. He's very deluded, Rob. I feel like I need to, we act as his carer in the Super League Pod family, really.
I mean, for anybody that was wondering why we get Rob on, he's the only person in Castleford with internet access, so that's why we have to get him on.
Well, that's because
to have the stream
he did
video.
the sensible thing and lives outside of Castleford. So
that's why.
There you go. That's why. Yeah. He's a busy man at the moment. He's got orders galore for his website, which sells toys and gifts, and it's selling a lot of England stuff for the World Cup, obviously. So he's a busy man at the
moment. Okay, in terms of Friday night, rearranged game. Rearranged because it was a little bit frosty on that. It still could have been played. I drove past it, should have been played. Completely different time of the year now, obviously.
You can't trust that pitch, though, can you? It's, what it is.
Yeah, I'm glad you referred to it as a pitch rather than a stadium or a ground. That field. Completely different scenario. The expectation, I guess, was that Castleford would be missing some from international duty, but they are missing players through injury. Luke Gale would have been playing, obviously would have been in the international setup. He isn't playing. Wigan missing Bateman, Williams, O'Loughlin, Paisley, Woods, and Farrell coming in. Farrell's rated 60-40 with a chance to play. How would you like Wigan to see Wigan set up on Friday? It's interesting with Paisley coming in and seems to be making his debut on Friday.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of what I've seen of Liam Paisley so far. I watched him closely at the Summer Bash game that he played for Swinton. Swinton are pretty good at putting up highlights, aren't they? I remember you had Colin, was it, on the
Colin James,
yeah. He runs the media stuff there, and he's pretty good at putting decent highlights of their games on as well. So on YouTube, so I've seen a little bit of what he's been doing for them, and obviously watched him come through the 19s and stuff like that. I'm a big fan of what he offers, so I'm quite excited to see him get a go in the second row. If Farrell plays, I think that's a big boost. Everyone who listens to my show's got, there's no secret that Liam Farrell's one of my favourite Wigan players. And if he plays, I think that's a big boost. The suggestion definitely seems that Woods is going to play. That's what I've picked up on from what I've read and heard. So I don't know if you think the same. So that he'll play instead of Williams.
I think you picked up on the same thing as what I did. Would be on the Wigan TV interview. It didn't even sound like there was any consideration of any other combination. It was Woods in for Williams and keep Escray on the bench. It's not going to be a bigger change than that, I don't think.
Which I agree with as a call. I like Escray coming into the game off the bench. I think I think Mullen and Field will be the two that miss out if Farrell's fit. If Farrell's not fit, it'll be Mullen and Farrell who miss out, I suspect. Tautai, I assume, is good to go. I'm hoping we start with Flower and Club because that really helped set a platform last week, as it has done throughout the season when they've been picked together.
Yeah,
That spell
you were
where
spot on.
Navarrete,
That's exactly what you said at the start of the game, isn't it, on Saturday? And you were spot on with that. Tony Clubb and Flower are the enforcers, and I think you said on Saturday it gives you that first 20 minutes of stability, and then Navarrete, who was voted our man of the match last week for a little indiscretion from a group of fans that were out on the drink voting for Romain Navarrete,
he
not
didn't play
orchestrated by
badly.
Matt. No, I thought he played well, and that's why I put him in
Yeah,
there to be voted for.
but Navarrete's another one I like off the bench. He makes a lot of strong carries and stuff like that. But when you start him, I think there's mistakes in him and that sort of stuff. When you want to really physically dominate, don't you, that first part of the game? And that's what we were doing so well, even in all those games we were losing at half time or only narrowly winning at half time in the first dozen games or so of the season. What we were doing was beating the other team up, and Flower and Clubb have been huge in that. So I'd start with them, and then the question mark for me is if Farrell's fit, do you start with Paisley or do you start with Isa in that right second row and put Hamlin or Tautai at loose forward and then bring Paisley on to go in the second row and slip Isa back to loose forward afterwards, or do you start with Isa at loose forward? What do you think there?
I wouldn't be surprised to see Flower at 13. We saw that a few years, but he's played there. I mean, I remember the playoffs maybe at Huddersfield in 2013 when Andy Powell actually played, or the game before the playoffs, and he just plays as a third middle, doesn't he? He just plays as a third prop, and his passing skills aren't anything to be desired of a 13, but he gives you that strength in there. So I wouldn't be surprised to maybe see him go there, or they just throw Isa into the middle and sort of start in there. And like you said, I think a lot depends on Farrell. Yeah. I'd be surprised if Farrell didn't play. I don't think they'd risk him in the squad. Particularly when they've still got so many good young players coming through, like Paisley. One comment that came up on there from Callum, which I think is interesting, is about Craig Mullen. He had a fantastic debut against Trinity, against Wakefield, didn't do anything wrong, but he's unfortunately not able to get back into the squad. Now, is there an argument? I think we both agreed that Woods is going to play, but is there an argument to have Escaré start and then you have Mullen as your utility on the bench, or do you think that's too much change?
Well, I think it's a lot of change. I think then when you're left with maybe Escaré and Tompkins in the halves and Mullen at fullback when he comes on for the swap, it seems a bit too much of a mix.
Too much change almost, isn't there?
Two really good players in Tompkins and Escaré, one who's been your best player this season and one who's been exciting when he's come on, both playing out of position slightly. It's not for me. Woods has deserved his go. Again, at the Summer Bash for Swinton, he was absolutely brilliant in that game.
It's probably the best game he's played this year, wasn't it?
Yeah, everyone's seen him play really well for us. So in the 19s last year, I talk about this lots on the show, but the 19s grand final last year, he was head and shoulders the best player on the pitch. Against Castleford. So obviously, and he might be playing against sort of a couple of those Castleford lads again in this game with people. I mean, they've got tons of injuries. Have you seen their squad? I don't know if we're going to talk about that at all, but they've got a couple of people coming back in. McShane's one of the ones that comes back in. He's really important for them. But Foster, Holmes, McMeekan, Milner, and Jesse Seni-Lefeo are out, as well as Greg Minikin. Now, wingers maybe not as much of a deal, but all those forwards that they're missing, and Holmes has been fantastic recently. Milner, they all love. Jesse Seni-Lefeo, since he came back from injury, has actually been a big reason why they've started being an impressive team rather than just a team that wins some, team that loses some. He's big carries, big influence in their games. You only had to watch that game the other week against Warrington, that offload he put in for QLT, that try.
Well, I think that Warrington game, you contrast that Warrington game with last week against Hull KR. So they've had this fantastic win against Warrington,
tricky side,
and then a draw against. Yeah, well, they are. We know that, and particularly with the added strength of Joel Tompkins, obviously. But we probably should have asked Lee, who's also a Castleford fan. So Lee, who was the guy that I had on Monday, who does Rugby League TV. They've just started Castleford Fans TV, which is great to see. Where do you think Castleford's strengths are now? I know you love your stats, so a couple of stats for you. Tompkins 11 assists, McShane 10 assists. Obviously, Williams is there with 17 now.
Yeah, I mean, McShane's definitely their key man this year, with Gale being out and kind of not consistent selections at fullback and at standoff. I think this week they're probably going to get QLT at fullback for the first time, and it's probably going to be Jamie Ellis and Jake Truman in the halves. Now that's not a bad half combination. It's a half combination who've got a really good short kicking game, so that's one thing that we need to watch out for, and that's another reason why I think Tompkins has to play at least most of the game at fullback, because he'll read that really well, and is very rarely out of position, Sam Tompkins. So I think that's one of the things. I would have said the forward pack, but the way it's been going recently. But you look at the side. I'm just going to try and get it back up on my screen in front of me just to be doubly sure on a couple of the players. Because if I'm right, there's no Watts, there's no Jesse Seni Lafayette. There is Millington and Morza in there, and Matt Cook's been playing okay. But I'm looking at that, and they've got 2 or 3 of their biggest forwards, Milner as well, who've been starters, kind of out of there. So that's people who you've got the Milner missed tackle stats up, which is a valid criticism that Cas fans seem to ignore. But he sets the tempo. It's exactly the same.
That's the reason why I brought it up.
It's exactly the same as we used to ignore how many tackles Michael Michelaurin missed because of the way he set the tempo, and the ones he did make seemed to be big and hard and tough. Yeah. So that's what he does for them, what Mickey Mack used to do for us.
Try and bring the team, the Cas team, on the screen in just a second.
You've got a new microphone as well. I've just noticed. This is impressive stuff going on.
No, I've had this microphone for ages. I just haven't used it. I don't even know if it's working, to be honest with you. So that's the team there. That's the squad. Sorry. So the Castleford team is Clare, Clark, Cook, Igordo, Ellis, Gill. Yeah, Kieran Gill.
It's between Toyi Agodo and Kieran Gill to play on the right wing, with Minikin being out. So, and the second row's very much weakened with McMeekin and Holmes being out. There's only really Joe Wardle who jumps out as an obvious choice in there. They might have to slip Moores or someone like that back into the back row. So, or Massey, I suppose, is a potential as well. But they're going to be playing some big blokes in the second row. That's an area later on into the first half that slip Morgan on, put him at standoff or halfback, and he can exploit that.
This is interesting. Obviously, Truman is in the squad. Callum says Jet Truman is a really good youngster for Cas. So I read Lee's comment, thinking it was Truman there, but Turner dropped back into the under-19s for tomorrow. So that suggests that...
they're going to field an under-19s team this week.
Yeah, because our game got called off, didn't it?
Yeah.
What was it, 2 weeks ago? But yeah, Jet Truman, we spoke a lot about Jet Truman before the DW game, if I remember rightly, or the game that got called off, because he obviously was incredible against us at the DW last year.
Yeah.
Do you think they've finally found his best position now that they can bring QLT in at fullback?
Truman's not a fullback; he's a halfback, and is a very promising one at that. He's got a great kicking game, great control to his kicking game. He's really mature for his age. He's very good at organising. What Callum said there, I think is right. He's a really good player, and he's a player they can bring through generally quite gradually, because they've got Luke Gale as the main guy there, and Truman's only 19 still, so. Yeah, there's a lot of promise there for them. Him and Ellis, their short kicking game, plus McShane, who's got a really good short kicking game close to the line. That's going to be the thing that we're going to have to look out for. And of course, on that Cas pitch, it's not hard to get up close to the line because it's about 50 meters long.
Did you see that actually on Wigan TV that they've shortened the pitch at Orrell at the moment? Oh, they've made it narrower and shorter so they can prepare for Cas on Friday night, which I thought was interesting. It's like half the size of the normal pitch. Yeah, absolutely. How do you see this going? It's just I'm really excited about this game because it allows us to see people like Paisley. I think both teams are well matched in terms of players that they're missing. I'm sure Castleford fans will probably argue that they're in a worse position than Wigan, and probably rightly so in terms of the injuries that they've got. But it's exciting to see the likes of Woods, Paisley. How do you see this game going on Friday?
Well, we're missing our two top carriers, which is Bateman and Williams, and O'Loughlin's in the top 6 or 7. I think he's 8th actually. Sorry, Sutton's in the top 5 as well for the amount of carries they have. That's people who are carrying the load for this team, doing the business for this team. So you can't overestimate what we have got missing out. Even though Castleford's injury list is probably is a bit longer. I don't know. I think we've got the edge in the outside backs because of what they're putting out. They've got probably the slight edge in the halves. the front rows are pretty even, the starting front rows, but I feel like we probably can. And the benches are probably quite even too, because you're picking your 5th, 6th, 7th choice forwards off the bench.
Yeah.
If Faz plays, our back row is better than theirs, and we'll win. If Faz doesn't play, it's a real coin flip of a game for me. I've gone Wigan winning by a clear try, 26-20. I'll go, and I fancy Gildart maybe to be first try scorer. I think they've got a lot of people playing in different positions or coming back from injury, playing on their right edge or left edge attack. So the golden edge should perform pretty well.
The golden edge,
even without Williams.
I see it, I guess, pretty similar to you. I think it's still going to be a close game. I think it's so important to build a lead at Castleford. It's almost impossible to get back in the game if you're sort of 2-3 tries behind at Castleford and the fans are on your back. That makes it so difficult there. But getting in front tends to get a little bit tasty up there as well. It's just a shame we're missing Bateman and don't have McAlorum anymore, because I think they used to enjoy going over to Castleford, didn't they, as a Leeds and Bradford lad. But yeah, I think it'll be close. I sort of think it's going to be a sort of an 18-12, 16-10 kind of scoreline. Probably depends a lot on weather conditions as well. As we know,
do we have
that
a
pitch
weather forecast?
I don't know. I'm just making that up. It's probably going to be glorious sunshine, but if it rains, that it's a kind of pitch that really does get affected by the rain, as we've seen, and that will have a big impact. It might not even play the game. Who knows?
Castleford.
While you
very high pollen count, so us hay fever sufferers are still going to be struggling, but very low chance of rain by the looks of this weather forecast. So and low winds, so it should be.
Ignore everything I just said over the past 2 minutes. Then, This isn't really linked with weather. We're obviously missing Matt tonight. Matt's got he's doing a comedy gig tonight. Obviously, normally does his comedy gig on here. And one thing we said last week was that we were going to brand up Macaulay's Moments, is what we were going to brand it up as, for when he does his poem, or we've had a philosophy lesson, we've had his puppets out, and we sort of half tongue in cheek said we would like a sponsor, and Stuart, who's I know will be watching, and he's already commented on this, is Stuart very kindly has offered to sponsor Macaulay's Moment. So hopefully next week when he's on, we'll have the first one, which is sponsored by All Seasons Gardening in Maryport, which is a very niche market, I think, for Stuart to get any potential tangible benefit from sponsoring a guy who's in Wiltshire talking about rugby in Wigan, and he's sponsored by a guy in Maryport. But I think that's quite interesting and shows the length and breadth of Wigan supporters. But yeah, if anybody needs any gardening done in Maryport, Stuart's your man.
Yeah. That sort of stuff shows the value of a show like yours, though. It connects fans, because we're a big club with a big fan base, but all of our fan base isn't in Wigan. I mean, you don't live in Wigan. I'm not from Wigan. I don't live in Wigan. Matt's doesn't live in Wigan. So we're all connected together by your great show. So thanks for that.
That's that there is Stuart, and that's that page there. I believe is that he's commenting off is his gardening page. So if there's anybody watching up in the Cumbria area, who I was going to leave this for Matt, but like you can imagine you can imagine what Matt's going to say next week. It'll be something like, if anybody needs the back garden trimming or front bush trimming or something like, he's going to have something ridiculous to say, isn't he, about it? But we'll leave that to Matt next week. But thank you very much.
I once
Stuart.
encountered a Mr. and Mrs. Trimming from Lady Garden. So the house was called Lady Garden. That was a good one.
Let's talk quickly before I let you go and watch the Iran-Spain game. And obviously listen to Leeds and Catalan tonight. Yeah, Wednesday night rugby. It's the future. Denver Test. So the Denver Test team announced today. It's a strange team. We've got 3 wingers in there. How do you see that? How do you see them playing that?
I expect Tommy Makinson might play in that right centre position like he has done for half a dozen or so games for Saints earlier this year, and that'll push John Bateman into the back row. I would assume that's the best guess I can come up with for what he's gone. I think everyone assumed Bateman would start in the right centre position, and it was 2 from 3 out of those 3 excellent wingers selected.
Yeah,
and then it would have been Williams and one of the forwards to miss out. I'm really surprised that Scott Taylor has jumped ahead of Luke Thompson somehow in the pecking order, when Thompson's been one of the best 3 props in the country for 12 months now, I would say. And Taylor was the one England player who didn't impress in last weekend's games. He was the one England player who I thought had a below par performance. Yeah,
he wasn't in the England squad. It seems hard. I mean, to be saying this about a St Helens player, it shows how far we've come, I guess. But
I'm fair to all on Super League Pod. I'm sorry if that upsets some staunch Wigan fans.
No, I think Luke Thompson's been absolutely fantastic for St Helens, like you say. Not just this season, the back end of last year, probably culminating in Justin Holbrook arriving at the club as well. I think he's been one of the players that Holbrook has definitely improved. So to see him drop out, it's a bit annoying that they've announced the 17-man squad without any squad numbers. I mean, they did that during the World Cup. They actually put squad numbers and you could kind of guess where people are going to play, but it's a strange one. It'd be nice to see Bateman get an opportunity in the back row, which is his position really, isn't it? Who do you think is going to play the halves then with Williams out? Connor?
I thought the halves would always have been Lomax and Widdop, with Connor coming off the bench. That's it's a utility value. You can put him anywhere. He can wind people up from anywhere. He might even play Connor in the centre and put Makinson on the bench. I just don't get that 3 wingers.
It's a strange one though.
But yeah, what do you think?
I think, I think he's got to play Makinson at centre. I think that's the trickiest piece of the puzzle to put in, and that's the one that has to get in to then fit all the others, if that makes sense. Because Jake Connor was a strange selection for Hull at centre, I thought, at the weekend, although he played really well. And then obviously put him to fullback quite late in that game.
Too late from their point of view, but I'm not bothered about
that. No, and it's a strange one out of the 3, out of Connor, Bateman and Makinson. I'd probably put Makinson at centre last out of those 3.
Yeah.
I'd probably have Bateman, then Connor, then Makinson. But the fact that he's in that 17, to me, suggests that he is going to play at centre, which almost feels like a box ticking exercise to get him a cap. But then why are you not giving Luke Thompson a cap? I wouldn't be surprised to see Luke Thompson sneak into that squad at some point. It just seems like a long way for him to. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, Bennett's done that before in the World Cup, hasn't he? He sort of announces a squad and then announces another squad later on.
He left Walmsley and Percival out last year, didn't he, when they went all the way over? Yeah, sorry.
No, sorry. Callum says, considering Williams is out, should he not be flown back here and getting ready for the Leeds game? Well, I think getting him ready for the Super 8s is what they're trying to do now. Callum, I don't think he's going to be fit for what they said, 5-6 weeks.
All the press yesterday said up about 4 weeks that he's going to be out for. I'm not sure what's happened with the medical team with England. Have they taken out? Because Chris Brooks is the England doctor as well as our doctor, isn't he? So has he gone with them to Denver, or has he stayed over where he was?
I mean, it's an interesting one, isn't it? I mean,
if he's over there, then he's got our club doctor with him, so it makes sense. And plus, his injury only flared up on the flight. They didn't realise the extent of things. They just thought it was a bit of a soreness, maybe, after a tough game where he carried the ball in front of and ran a million yards. Yeah.
Williams, he was keeping it quiet. He wanted a free trip out to America. He didn't want to. Got on the flight and was like, "Oh crap, this is getting swollen now."
I'm pretty sure he just wanted other places for a free flight than Denver. Maybe not.
Who knows?
Yeah. Maybe Broncos fan.
Yeah, maybe. Before I let you go, one thing that I did promise that I would comment on is this comment from Martin. Made a comment on Winder being the coach 12 months before Edwards. The current rumours, right? Without saying exactly what Phil Wilkinson said, it's a load of rubbish. Apparently, at this moment in time, I think the story that was run in the League Express or League Weekly or whatever it was on Sunday was
League Weekly that ran it.
Yeah, I think it was a bit of stab in the dark, I think, by what was it, Nosey Parker, Nosey Parker, whatever.
Parker, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was potentially a bit of a stab in that. That's not to say that won't happen. I said last week to Phil Wilkinson, I think the morale of the fans is important in this decision, and albeit I'm sure John Winder's a fantastic coach, perhaps not ready to be a head coach, which I think is perhaps what's been said in the interview that's coming out with Phil Wilkinson and Ian Lenigan. Would you like to see Winder given an opportunity for 12 months if it did mean Edwards coming in? Or do you think it's just a case of we've got to get that decision right now? It seems, put yourself in Winder's position as well. Would you say
know what? I'd rather have someone like Dennis Betts for a year than John Winder for a year, if I'm being completely honest. But
why, is that because of lack of experience, or is that a judgment on John Winder as a coach? Or?
I've got no issue with the not playing at the top level thing.
Yeah,
I think we overstate the importance of that these days. I think the players have shown an ability to respect and buy into coaches from the youth level up that aren't former high performing pros and that sort of stuff. So I don't buy into that side of it. He hasn't had a top gig at coaching head coaching role, and even as an interim measure, I don't really see the point. I don't really see the benefit to us of giving him, like, almost training him up for a job he's never going to have.
yeah, it seems
It doesn't
harsh,
make
doesn't it?
sense for him and us. I I'd really like Edwards to come back. I think Ian Lenigan would really like Edwards to come back because Ian Lenigan is bothered about filling that stadium up, and
Yeah,
that'll get people filling that stadium up. And do you know what? If it goes wrong, there's 20, 30, 40, 50,000 of us who can be blamed for it, because how many message board posts has there been, how many tweets and all that has there been about just sack all this lot up and get Edwards back. And that's
yeah,
been every coach other than Michael Maguire for the last 20 years, pretty much.
absolutely.
So
Interesting one from Martin there is Ford available from Union, as no one's mentioned him with Deacon. I mean, it's an interesting one, and
I'd take Deacon for a year as this interim head coach, and then
I mean,
Edwards as
what
Deacon as assistant. If you can throw that much money into those positions, if we're willing to and capable of throwing that much money of it, I'd do that.
I mean, one thing that Dave Wood said on here a few weeks ago was Edwards, what he'd heard as a rumor, not any sort of incident. You know, I must say that this hasn't come from any inside information, but they were potentially looking at maybe an Edwards, Deacon, Gleeson combination. Martin Gleeson at Salford, coming in and potentially being an assistant there, which could be interesting. If you can hear my dog, I apologise. That's going to be
Gleason
cracking
would
on
be
the podcast.
a great guy to bring in and sort of bridge the gap between the reserves and the first team as well. I think he'd be a really good coach of a reserve team, Gleeson, because he's shown a lot of coaching ability at Salford,
Yeah.
and he's mostly been working with their sort of, not, they don't have a youth set up there as such, but he has done, as I understand it, a lot of work with some of the younger players. So
I think
so
Callum's
I
laughing
think
at the fact that the dog's barking in the background. I managed to get through about 36 shows without her barking all the way through, and then potentially one of the last ones that I do before I sort of take a couple of weeks off, she's barking her head off. But there you go.
yeah.
She just wants a bit of fame.
Who do
Um,
you want Edwards then? Don't you? That's
I'm
you and
desperate
Matt
for
are pretty
Edwards.
much on that. Yeah,
I'm
on that
desperate for
train.
Edwards. And like, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever, does it, to have someone that's been out of the game for 20 years to come back? But for me, it's that morale thing. It's that boost that you get from a returning hero. Everything, everyone buys
Yeah.
into it. You have a massive off season. You sell your season tickets. Everybody gets behind it. Ultimately, it might end in failure, you know, as it may do. But I'd just love to see Sean Edwards back at Wigan, and I'd love to see him at Wigan next year, and for him to not go to the Rugby Union World Cup. I don't want to wait. If he doesn't want to come this year, I would. Bridges aren't burnt. He's a club legend, but I would want him to come now. I would want him to drop the thought of going to the Rugby Union World Cup. If he wants the job, I think Wigan has to take the priority. I think that's the interesting thing at the minute.
If he doesn't come now, I'd want next year's interim to be someone who he's handpicked to be on his staff for the year after, if we're going to have an interim coach. Otherwise, let's go try and find a talented assistant from down under, because it's worked for us before. It's working for St. Helens right now. That's the other way I would go. And hey, if that talented young assistant doesn't work out, we can get Edwards for the year after.
Yeah, maybe so. In terms of this, before I let you go, the stubby holder, not many people are watching have sort of comment on it. So pick a number of 1 or 2, Mark, and
1.
Okay, Andy Crockett, who's tagged Kieran Brannigan in. Andy, if you send me your address as a message, I'll send this over to you. And Stuart says that he also wants one. Stuart Minnis, because you're sponsoring Matt, I've got another one for you. Send me your address, Stuart, and I'll post those 2 out. Super League pod next week. You said you got the Origin guys potentially on. Is that going to be next week, week after?
Next week, yeah. So we should have someone covering off, hopefully for them and New South Wales victory. We've got Brian, who's going to be in Denver for the test match on as well. So yeah, just make sure you're following us on Twitter and look out for the tweets. Get your match reviews in on our game on Friday night and on the England test in Denver as well.
Perfect. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Mark, thank you for joining us and tuning into Super League Pod if you've not downloaded this week's. Next week, I've scheduled a preview show for Monday for the Leeds game. Whether I actually make it to Monday without a baby being born and can do the show, we will see. But we've got Ethan from Get 'Em On Side blog who's going to come on, who's a Wigan fan and represent Leeds for that at some point next week. And Mark and Matt will potentially be taking over the reins while I take a couple of weeks out, if we can find a way of sort of passing the reins over. So thank you very much for that,
Don't send that bloody board back round my house, though.
Oh no, you have to have this. You have to have this. I mean, if I just sort of put the camera on a little bit wider, just so people can actually appreciate the ridiculousness of it. I mean, that's not even all of it. I mean, there's some really good photographs on it. I'm really happy with the photographs that I put on, but I think I'll have to sort of move it around week by week so you can actually see who's on there. There's some really good photographs. Sean Edwards is on there somewhere as well. Oh, he's there.
Just over your left shoulder?
There he is. Right, let's go and listen to Leeds and Catalan, and I guess it's nearly half time Iran, Spain. But thank you very much, Mark, and thanks everybody for watching.
Thank you.